Hello and welcome to this month's Glow Heartfulness webinars. Glow stands for Genuine Loving Outstanding Women, and it's an initiative by the Heartfulness Institute to teach meditation for women from across the world. Heartfulness Institute continues to teach heartfulness meditation through various initiatives in schools, colleges, universities, corporates, communities, and these webinars are one such initiative where women can learn meditation from the comfort of their homes. So today we have Terren Daly with us, who is a registered and licensed occupational therapist, and she's been working with parents, teachers, children in Scotland and rural California for over 30 years. Today on the webinar, she's going to speak about creating a more peaceful, joyful family during lockdown and beyond. Terren is also a certified trainer in nonviolent communication. She is a founding member of the Scottish Parliament cross-party group on peace education, and she's delivered peace education modules to students in Scottish schools, including children in disadvantaged areas. Terren is a wonderful mother of 2 boys. Ellie was severely disabled with special needs, and his precious memories are with us today. Noah is an amazing, nurturing, gentle father and husband, and he is also the proud father of a 12-year-old daughter. Terren is the proud grandmother of a 12-year-old granddaughter, Zoe, who is a talented artist and STEM biscuit. So thank you for joining us today, Terren. It's been a pleasure. It's been an honor to have you over today.
It's a real pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So let me start with the first question which we have received. In this lockdown situation, it's been most difficult. It's been extremely difficult for all of us to manage with our families, manage with our children. Can you tell us something? Can you just help us get started with, anything that you say is going to help us a lot today? So how to handle this with families and children?
Sure, thank you. So it is difficult. Lockdown is difficult. It's difficult, especially for families. So many factors contribute to that. The children often are not allowed to go out and play, or their outside play is restricted. They don't get to see their friends. A lot of people have to stay in one house, in one apartment, that usually they would have a lot more space. But in lockdown, you're together all the time, and that is going to make stress, and it's going to make tensions. So it is hard. Here at Kanha, where I live, we were under a very strict lockdown. We weren't allowed to go out at all, maybe once a day to empty our trash, and that was it. Kids had to stay in all the time. So you can imagine that's very, very hard on children. There's some real basic needs that kids have that are hard to meet in that kind of situation. And the first one I want to talk about is movement. Kids move. Kids need movement like they need air and sunshine. It's just part of how they're made up. Nature has them programmed to move, and for good reason, because movement is the means by which their bodies develop. Their bodies and their brains and their emotions all develop through movement. If a child can't have movement for some reason, it's very, very hard on them. A child who maybe has to be restricted in a body cast. I had a friend that was in that situation, and it gave her real problems she had to overcome later in life. So we need movement. Most of us know we need movement to develop our bodies, our strength and our balance and coordination. But we're not so familiar with needing movement to develop our brains, but it's really true. When you move, the brain actually releases a factor that increases neuron growth and increases the connectivity between neurons and the connection between different parts of the brain. All of those are so important to kids learning and growing and developing as healthy, organized, peaceful, alert people. Also, when you move, your body releases endorphins. I think most people have heard of endorphins. They're called the feel-good hormone. They give you a sense of well-being. And what's not so well known is that they also give you give a child a kind of an alert, a calm, alert state, so that they're in a better position to do anything after they've had a chance to move. In fact, a lot of schools now are giving kids very vigorous movement. First thing in the morning, they'll have them run around the track so many times or go out and play in the playground, for 20 minutes or something. Then they come in and they're ready to settle down and learn. So I recommend that if your family is in lockdown, that you give movement early in the day, if possible. And then again, whenever kids seem to be getting antsy, irritable, or they can't concentrate, or they're wiggling around, or they're just getting into trouble for no good reason you can see, get them moving. It will help them. It will help them to calm themselves and organize themselves. If you can, if the kids are allowed to go out, super. Please have them go outside. Playgrounds are wonderful. I think we have a slide here of a playground. Do we, Purnima? Do we have a slide of a playground? Maybe not. Okay. But anyway, playgrounds are wonderful because they provide some very rich opportunities for climbing, jumping, swinging, bouncing. All of these things are things that feed the child through their nervous system. It gives them a lot of input through all of their senses. And it does help to produce this kind of calm, alert state. If your children can't go outside, if they're really restricted to home, it's a little harder, but you can still do it. Here in Kanha, we have a lot of families were under a lot of stress. So I was asked if I could create a WhatsApp group. We called it Active Kids at Home to give parents ideas for how their kids could meet some of these needs that they can't meet as easily in lockdown. So one of the first things we talked about was movement. And all of us helped to contribute. And we found many wonderful videos on YouTube. It's a great resource of aerobics. These are for kids of any age. Aerobics, there's a very vigorous brain gym workout, yoga, there's kung fu for the young warriors that need to get their energy out and fight. May as well have them learn to do that in a respectful and controlled way rather than fighting with their siblings. So kung fu can be wonderful. You can also, for older children, you can have them do calisthenics, have them do push-ups, crunches, strenuous yoga asanas, or they could do skipping rope and hula hooping. And a way to make that more fun and kind of a challenge is to record how many they can do each day or how long it takes them to do so many, and see if they can beat their personal best each day. And that gives them a little bit of incentive, so it's not just an exercise, but something that will involve them and get them going.
Thank you, Teren. But I would like to interrupt you here for a while. So these are all wonderful examples and wonderful tips, but I would also like to know, what do we do with very young children?
Okay, young children, we've got
organized and structured way of creating movements in child's life, but it's not so easy to get a very young child to get into the mode of movement when he's frustrated or when he's down something. If you can also help with that a little bit, it would be nice.
Yes, okay. Well, here in Kanha, one of the things that I suggested for little kids is animal walks. And I suggested this because it uses these different animal walks. They use all parts of the body. It's a whole body activity. Whereas just jumping up and down mostly gets the legs, or just pushing against the wall gets the arms. But the animal walks get everything. We have a slide here you can show us, a video of one of our little girls, Christina. This is Christina, and she got very good at her animal walks. Here she's being a crab, and here she's trying to be a dog a lame dog. It can only use 3 legs. Or yeah, she can't quite get that last leg off the ground yet, but you can see her trying really hard. And even that trying, it really uses her muscles well. And you don't have to just do straight animal walks. That might get boring after a while. You can make them into games. If you have more than one child, it's even more fun, where maybe the mom or dad can call out an animal like crab, and the child will go around doing crab walks, and then after a while they call out frog, and the child will start doing frog hops, and then they'll call out alligator, and the kid gets on the floor and wiggles around like an alligator. So that makes it more fun. Or you can play music and do animal freeze. Play music, and then when you stop the music, the animal has to freeze right where it is. You can do the same thing with dancing also. Just dance around to music and then stop the music, and the kid has to freeze. And even that freezing, when you have to stand in one position for a long time, you have to use your muscles quite strongly to do that. So that's good movement also. Well, not movement, but good muscle use. Then one mom had a wonderful idea. You want to show us her idea? It's the next video. She created a trampoline park, and the kids had such fun bouncing. And you'll see not just bouncing, but crashing. And all of that is such good sensory input and such good movement. So get creative. I mean, I didn't suggest a trampoline park. This mom just thought of it. It was a fantastic idea. There they go.
That was amazing. I love the crab walk. I love the trampoline walk too. So these are wonderful ideas. I also love the ideas of playing music and dancing and just stopping it
Yeah,
randomly.
yeah.
So thank you for these amazing ideas. My next question is: are there some other more needs of children which can go unmet during this lockdown phase, or like if you can explain
Yeah, two
those
more
other
that
needs?
I won't,
Mhm.
yeah, okay, two more that I want to focus on today. One is just free play with friends. You know, kids just love to play. Um, what kids do is they play, especially, well, all kids actually. And the younger ones, they'll play more like imagination games, role playing games. I think we have a slide of this. Oh, here, this girl is playing blocks. And now, wait, let's go back to the captain there. Here we go. These two girls are playing ship, and they found a cardboard box, and I think someone has probably helped them make this fine telescope, but you could use anything, a paper towel roll or a toilet roll or anything could be a good telescope. Or the kids could even better just invent their own game, because young children learn so much by this kind of role-playing pretend game. Um, First of all, they have to think of something to do. So it develops their imagination. And then they have to find the things that they need to do it. So it helps them learn to carry out things that they plan, carry out tasks. They have to make decisions. And then once they're playing, they practice their social skills. One little girl might say, okay, let's play ship. I'm captain. And the other sibling might say, wait a minute, you were captain last time. It's my turn. I want to be captain. So they have to kind of work out their conflicts and learn to take turns. You know, okay, you can be captain this time, but I am next time. And um, thereby learn how to get along with other people and other children outside of that role-playing situation. Another thing is that when they do take different roles in role-playing games, their teacher and student, their doctor and nurse, whatever is the game that they're playing, they learn to see the world through different perspectives, to see through different people's eyes. And this is a great skill to have. It leads later in life to empathy, because in order to empathize, you have to be able to see things through other people's eyes. So that foundation has been played when the kids play doctor and nurse and teacher and student and cop and robber, or, you know, whatever it is that they're playing. So older kids also need play, but their play is a little different. They usually do more structured things. We have a slide here of one thing they might like to do. And I'll just keep talking while you're finding the slide. In this picture, the boys are playing a game, a board game. And that's one thing that kids do love to do, the older ones. I think they're universal. I think every culture has its own board games. And so when you're playing a board game, you're thinking, you're developing your thinking skills, you're developing your strategy skills, and you're also developing your social skills. You still have to take turns. You have to develop frustration tolerance. You're probably not going to win every time. And when you lose, you know you're going to be frustrated, and you have to learn to take it and roll with it and be okay. So there's a lot that's learned there. They might also play ball games, and of course that's again movement and developing physically. Card games also develop strategies and patience and tolerance. Um, they might have clubs. I know when I was a kid, we made an astronomy club, and we took it very seriously. We had an entrance exam everyone had to take before they could get in the club. So we learned a lot from that. We developed new skills. We developed new ways of understanding things. And we also developed confidence through doing that. So there's, let's see, what else? Even just hanging out is important. Teens spend a lot of time just hanging out with friends. And that's good. They need to do that. It gives them time to relax, to de-stress, and just to have time to consolidate everything else that's happened, to take it in, to integrate everything else that is happening in their lives. It's really an essential. It's not just kids like to hang out. There's a good reason for it. In fact, almost everything kids do, there's a good reason for it.
Thank you so much, Karen.
It's their okay.
Most of these activities seem to involve a lot of playmates, or maybe a sibling, elder or younger sibling who is also a playmate. So can you suggest what to do when you have single children? There are a lot of parents who have a single child, and can you suggest some activities or games, or which parents can do with children and kids still feel occupied and engaged in an equally enriching manner?
Yes, there are single children, and then there are children where the siblings are too far apart in age to play together all the time. And there are families where the siblings fight so much that it's hard, it can be hard for them to play together all the time. Exactly. So in that case, there are things a kid can do in solitude. Building games are a very great thing. Legos, blocks, for older kids, models. Drawing is a wonderful thing for children to do. Coloring, reading, there's a lot of solitary games. But also, at times, the parent can step in and be a playmate for the child to give them that practice in social skills and all the things that they learn from younger children, pretend play, from older children, things like board games. When a parent is being a playmate, there's some important things to remember. We've a lot of grown-ups have forgotten how to play, and we think we need to tell our children what to do all the time. But even maybe more than half of the value of these kind of games is the child leading, the child making the decisions, the child having the ideas. That's how they learn to be creative and to have ideas and to take the lead and to make decisions. So the parent needs to let the child lead. And come up with a lot of the ideas and make a lot of the decisions. Then it doesn't mean the parent can't take any part in it. I mean, when kids are playing, they take turns having ideas, and they take turns making decisions. I don't mean formally, but I have an idea. Let's make a dinosaur. Okay, all right. Okay, hey, let's make a cave for the dinosaur to go in. So each person kind of contributes. So the parent can do that with the child, but not instructing the child or telling them what to do. It can be tricky, but I think once a parent gets the hang of it, it's just a lot of fun. And you get to get in touch with your own childhood and remember how things were when you were little. The American Academy of Pediatrics did a whole paper on the importance of play in childhood. It's a beautiful paper. I forgot to say it, but this is something I do want to say. We're going to have resources at posted on the website, on the page where this webinar is posted. And we'll be putting a lot of things in there, like a lot of other possibilities for games that we don't have time to talk about today. A lot of links to videos that are good, the good yoga videos we found, and so on. And I'll also post this particular article because it's very compelling. It really makes you understand how important play is for children. And they talk a lot about parents playing with children. They think that's important and very useful. I want to just read one paragraph from that. When parents join with their children in child-driven play, they are given a unique opportunity to see the world from their child's vantage point. The interactions that occur through play tell children that parents are fully paying attention to them and help to build enduring relationships. Parents learn to communicate more effectively with their children and are given another setting to offer gentle, nurturing guidance. Less verbal children may be able to express their views, experiences, and even frustrations through play, allowing their parents an opportunity to gain a fuller understanding of their perspective. Quite simply, play offers parents a wonderful opportunity to engage fully with their children.
Thank you so much, Darren. That was really amazing. Thank you so much. I was also wondering, how do we utilize this amazing opportunity with nature? Nature also seems to nurture us a lot, and that's a very unique, beneficial aspect in the upbringing of a child. How can we harness that? And can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. I remember in my own childhood, which was quite a while back now, um, I I have such happy memories of playing in nature. We lived in a suburb, but it did have quite a lot of wild areas around, and I could roam the fields. I could pick berries. I could catch little critters and bring them home for a day or two before letting them go. I could climb trees. So many things that children don't have quite as much access to now. But nature is important, and it's important to get kids out. It's sometimes, unfortunately, these days, kids spend an awful lot of time on electronic devices, and I think most of us know that that has a lot of hazards, is maybe not too strong a way to put it, associated with it. Lack of movement, possibly the radiation from the devices themselves, fixation. You make things happen on electronics. You're in total control. So, and things move very fast. So when you come back to the real world, you don't have as much control. Things are hard. You have to actually do things with your body. You have to actually move. And sometimes kids can get addicted to that virtual world. So it's really important to get them out into the real world. Here in this slide, these kids are having a chance to explore a stream. And you can see how nurturing this must be. For one thing, they're getting all different senses stimulated. With a screen, you just have your vision. Here, yes, there's plenty of vision, but it's more relaxing, the vision. It's bubbling water and green trees. And you can see they're standing on gravel. That's going to be giving them input through their feet, sensory input, the feeling of the rocks, of the gravel, of the water. They're probably hearing birds sing. It's such a richness, such a rich experience. And children, sensory input almost we could have put as another need that is so important for children, because like movement and like play, it's essential to the nervous system developing properly. So it's been shown, there have been a lot of studies now, or several studies now, about the importance of nature. In one of the studies, kids were allowed to go outside and walk in a park just 20 minutes. And then when they came back, their attention and focus had significantly increased over before they had that walk. They've also found that it increases academic performance. When children are allowed to play in nature, they do better in school. Um, it also increases their sense of competence and ability to do things. So, and reduces anxiety and stress. That's also been shown. All of those are kind of scientific things. Here you can see this little girl climbing the tree, and it gives her a real sense. She knows I'm strong, I'm capable, which she gets by climbing, by doing something challenging, by doing something maybe just a little bit risky. It gives her a chance that she's really accomplished something. Of course, we don't want our kids to do anything too risky, but a little bit of risk is a good thing. It challenges them in a way that they need. You know, I read recently about an anthropologist working in a tribe who told them about how we are with children, how we protect them from every single little risk. And the person in the tribe, the tribal person, couldn't understand that at all. You know, how do your children grow up? You know, if they don't do real things. So there is some importance to that. And then there's also when the whole family participates and goes out into nature. We have a slide for that. Oh, here we're just looking. Let's stay with that one for a minute. This is it. This is developing a sense of wonder, which you don't get anywhere. I don't think as clearly and as sparkling cleanly as you do in nature. You can't be in nature and not have a sense of wonder if you really look at it. And these kids are really looking at it. So now here's a whole family enjoying nature together. And that will improve family relationships and make for a strong family. If there's any way you can get out in nature as a family, please do.
Oh,
But,
yeah,
but,
but the but was what I was asking, wanted to ask you about what to do, but now we are challenged.
yeah, yeah. So that's how important it is. But we're locked down. It's either harder or impossible to get out in nature. Well, maybe not impossible, because there are some ways we can bring nature in. One thing we've done here where I live is to do indoor gardening. You in this What this slide is, it's some sprouts that we grew. It was very simple. We didn't need soil even. We shredded up newspaper, put it in a box with good drainage, put some tissue on top of the newspaper, and put mung bean seeds on it. Closed the box, kept it closed for some time while the seeds sprouted, watering it daily. And then once the seeds started to grow leaves, we took the lid off, put it in the sun, and look what happened. These are mung bean sprouts that we could cut and harvest and eat in our stir fry. So that's a wonderful thing to do. You can grow indoor herbs. You can grow houseplants. Any of those things will help to bring nature in. You can also draw pictures, have the children draw pictures or find pictures in old magazines of nature and put them up around your house, and that will begin to bring nature inside. You can also make friends with wildlife. Here's a little friend that we made friends with here. This is Spick. Spick is a little sparrow. He's a male, and we were feeding him crumbs every morning. And pretty sure that Spick was raising a family, because he kept disappearing with crumbs in his beak and flying down, giving it, I'm sure, to his wife and babies. He was a very hard worker. He would do that over and over and over. And finally, one day, he quit flying down. And the next day, we met his wife, Span. So we had Spick and Span. And they were just, we had a real relationship with these little birds. If we didn't get out early enough in the morning, Spick would cheep like he was scolding us. If it was a happy day and we got out in time, he'd give us a very cheery little chip, 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 chip in the morning. So he became like a real friend and a real part of nature that we were able to bring right into life, even in lockdown. Other possible
Thank you
ideas?
so
Yes?
much, Darren. Thank you so much
Okay,
for sharing that beautiful friendship
okay.
you have created with Speak and Span. I mean, of course, I love you to continue, but I really wanted to convey my gratitude for sharing that beautiful relationship with me and all the participants, because this is something which I'm sure would have touched all of us. It touched my heart for sure. I mean, it's not that we are under lockdown and we can still create, nurture relationships in a very beautiful, loving way. That was really touching. So I'll just allow you to continue now.
Thank you. So I see our time is becoming a little bit short. Um, I wanted to just touch on sense.
Thank you so much, Taran. And please don't worry about time. I'm sure all of us are appreciating what you're saying so much. So there's another question which I received from one of the participants sometime earlier. And she wanted to know how can she encourage sensory play during this time, especially during this time, and what can she do? If you have any ideas to encourage or inculcate the sensory play aspect.
Yes, sensory play is really important. That is part of what children get out of being in nature in quite a natural way. But many children like even more. And if they can't get in nature, it's especially important to give them extra sensory play. One, there's a lot of sensory activities, and I'll list a resource with many of the possible sensory activities, and also recipes for making them, like Play-Doh. It's very easy to make Play-Doh, and it's an activity. Just making it is such a fun activity. Children love it. Here, this child is playing in Play-Doh, and you can see they're getting the sense of touch stimulated by the feel of the Play-Doh. But there's actually more than that. When you squeeze the Play-Doh to make the ball, and when you push down on the knife to cut the Play-Doh, there is another sense getting stimulated that's a very important one that most people don't even know about. We think we have 5 senses, but we actually have more. So this sense that's getting stimulated is called proprioception. And the receptors, like the eyes are the receptors for sight and the ears are the receptors for hearing. Receptors for proprioception are in the muscles and joints. So when you use a muscle, like in squeezing or pushing down to cut, you are making those proprioceptors fire, and it's sending this kind of sensory input to your brain. I'm spending a little time on that because this is actually an important form of sensory input, in that it is both calming and alerting and settles children. This is something kids can do if they're getting unsettled. If they're little kids, give them some Play-Doh, or many of the other sensory activities we're going to just show and talk about now. Here is kinetic sand. You might have heard about it. It's a kind of sand that has substances in it that make it stick together. So it's very satisfying for kids to play with. It's also easy to make, and there will be a recipe for how to make kinetic sand. One of my young friends here at Kanha has been making kinetic sand quite successfully. There's also shaving cream play is one where you have shaving cream that the child plays and draws in. This little boy here is showing us rice tray play, where there's rice, you sprinkle it in the tray, the child can draw. You can also put things in, you see the bin with all the rice in it. You can bury little toys in that and let the children dig through it, and it's getting lots of stimulation to their hands. It's a wonderful activity. Finding treasures in it. There's also finger painting, which I think kids all love finger painting. It's so nice and gooey, and is just wonderful sensory input, and they get to make pretty things out of it that they didn't even know they could make. There's a lot of other possibilities and a lot of other recipes, but I'll just leave it to you to look at those on the resource list.
Thank you so much, Darren. And like Darren mentioned, that there'll be a lot of resources on the same page as the webinar is hosted, where the recording of the webinar will be hosted. And all these resources are for all of us, not only during this lockdown period, it's like forever, it's going to be there. So moving on to my next question, there has been a lot of stress for families during this period. It's so wonderful that you're sharing so many ideas, Jaren, but when there is so much of stress and like there is palpitable tension, irritability, and frustrations because
Mm,
parents are also working from home. Some parents,
mm,
both the parents are working in some cases, and
mm,
they have toddlers or young children,
mm.
primary school aged children. I mean, it's a very difficult situation. So, if you can, talk a little bit about that period of stress which parents go through.
Yeah, yeah. Everyone thinks you'll have a lot more time during lockdown. I don't know. It's not always true. You know, if one parent or both parents are working from home, it can be more difficult. You can actually have less time. And one other thing you have less of is space. You're all together. You're all together all the time. And that cannot help but be stressful. You know, every family has a certain amount of stress. Every family has rough edges. That's why we're together, and that's why we're put together in families. Partly it's to support each other, yes, and to love each other, yes, but it's also to be with each other so that our rough edges rub up against each other and get all nice smooth. In kind of slow motion. We have a little bit of maybe stress, and then it's time to go to school, it's time to go to work, it's time the children leave, whatever. And we have some stress and some time to let it all settle. But in lockdown, it's constant. Whatever those little rough edges are, they're with us all the time. So we have to do something about it. What do we do? How do we handle them? Um, I've been thinking about this, and I've been thinking about stress. And I've been thinking how it's kind of amplified right now for many families. Um, and I've been thinking about stress as kind of nature's way of showing us places or ways that we need to do things differently, or think about things differently, or approach things differently. That may be what stress, or part of what stress actually is. Does that make sense? That, what,
Perfectly, yeah, I understand
yeah,
totally. So,
yeah.
yeah.
You had a question?
No, I was just wondering, I totally agree with you. It's nature's way of telling us to look at, what's happening. So, say, for example, a child is misbehaving or,
Mm,
there is a
mm,
tantrum show going on.
mm,
I mean, it's so difficult for parents to,
mm,
come away from their meetings or,
mm,
for example,
mm,
this webinar, and I'm also a mother,
mm,
I'm
mm,
doing this webinar now. And, if my child is slightly older, it's fine. Like, I mean, he can
mm,
understand and wait for me to come back. But, otherwise, how do parents really manage,
mm,
all that is
mm.
going on?
Yes, yes, it can be really hard. It can be really hard.
And one thing which you said makes
Yes,
a lot of sense. People think this lockdown is a period where we get to spend a lot of time with our families. People think,
yes,
it's a general
yes,
idea to think that, you have wonderful time with your family. You can
yes,
spend a lot of time with your family. You have all the time in the world. But that's really not the case. I don't seem to be
yeah,
away from
yeah,
kitchen at all. I don't seem to be like stopping to do all my chores at
yeah,
all.
yeah,
And it's not easy. And I have a grown up child. I mean, he's not
yeah,
so young as he
yeah,
needs constant attention. So even for me, it's like that. So I'm sure it's very difficult for parents. It's very difficult for
yes,
families as a whole to stay, just within four closed walls.
yes,
It was really a very, I mean, if for somebody to just say that, I understand it's not easy, lockdown is actually difficult for families. Just to hear that affirmation from someone was,
yes,
it meant a lot. It just made me feel, lighter.
yes,
The weight was
yes,
slightly lesser. So thank you so much
yeah,
for mentioning
okay,
that, and I'm sure a lot of parents also feel that
yeah,
yeah, yeah, you are not, it's not easy for you. It's something
yeah,
we want to, we want that
yeah,
kind of information. So thank you, and let me not interrupt you again. Please continue.
Okay, good. Well, what it looks like to me is families can get into kind of negative spirals. I'm going to take a simpler example than when you're on a webinar and your son is needing your attention or asking for your attention. I'm just going to say, well, actually, this could fit. This could fit. Let's say you're doing something, you're tired, you're doing something. You could be on a webinar, you could just be sitting and reading or anything. And your son is banging the door. This is a young son. I don't think your son would do this. This is a younger son. He's just taking a door and he's going bang, bang, bang. And this is a habit he has. Bang, bang, bang. And at first you kind of ignore it, you kind of tune it out, and then it just gets to on your nerves. It just gets to really irritating you. What do? So a lot of times you'll, kind of lose your temper and shout and say, would you stop banging that door? You're always banging the door. Stop. Okay. So that's a very natural response, but it may not be the best or most productive response. So when you find something happening like this kind of spiral that you're getting into, you're going to have to step back and look and analyze and think, what can I do differently? And I'm saying, what can I do differently? Because in this situation, everyone has a role to play. Everyone may be doing things that aren't too productive, but I'm the only one I can control. If I can't do something different, that's the only thing I can change. Something's got to change in this situation. And the only thing I personally have the power to change is myself. There was a wonderful, did you see it? I'm going to try to find it. There was a wonderful, beautiful thought this morning. It was just so right on. Here, I'm gonna because unless you change, you are not going to change anybody else. And I thought that was just so appropriate for what I wanted to say this morning. So what can I change in this situation? What can I do differently? And I'd like to suggest a few things. One is you can think about, what need is the child meeting by doing this behavior, whatever it may be. The child will be trying to meet some need. Now, it would take banging the door. I can think of a couple of needs that could be meeting. One is maybe he's looking for that sensory input. Some kids need extra sensory input, but the feeling of the door banging, it makes a kind of a nice vibration in the body. It makes a nice sound that the child is in control of. Sometimes children can be kind of frightened of loud sounds that come suddenly. This one he's in control of. He can make it, he can give him a sense of power. Bang, bang. So that's another need. It could be a sensory need, like the literal vibration and sound of it. It could be a sense of power. He's doing something that has an effect. And the third need I can think of is maybe he's looking for attention. So it could be any one of those. So, or something else. So you need to analyze and think, what is it? If you can tell by observing over time, you can't tell in that one situation. If your son always does that when you're on the phone or on a webinar, chances are it's attention he's looking for. If he just does it any old time of the day or night, it could be possibly sensory. So if it's sensory, you try to look at another way he can meet that sensory need. And I'm not going to go into that greatly here. That could be a whole webinar in itself. But there will be other ways to meet the need. If it's attention, there are also other ways to get attention. So what I recommend to families when they figure out that maybe it is attention that the child is looking for, it's a very valid need, by the way. People tend to dismiss it and say, oh, he just wants attention. He wants attention. We all want attention. Are we giving our children attention, or are we always preoccupied? Are we always busy with other things? Are we always on our devices? How much really good attention are we giving our children? Doesn't have to be all the time, but when it's there, it needs to be for real, like pure, undiluted attention. And so then I would say the other thing we want to look at is what I call water what you want to grow. So we know in this case what we don't want. We don't want the kid to be banging the door. What do we want? We want quiet, we want peace. What do we want him to do? We want him to think of something else to do besides banging the door. So let's tell him what we do want him to do. Maybe what we want him to do is to let the door rest. Okay, so let's say, what can we do differently? We can tell the child what we do want them to do, not what we don't want them to do. So you might know this famous kind of line, don't think about pink elephants or purple camels. And where does your mind go immediately? It goes to pink elephants and purple camels. So the brain sometimes phases out the word don't. And what is reinforced in the brain is the word bang the door. So it's like we're increasing the imprint of bang the door, bang the door, bang the door. So rather than say what we don't want the child to do, we're going to need to tell them what we do want them to do. So we could say something like, please leave the door to rest and come over here and let's talk a minute. Or something of that sort. So that you give a positive command. Command, I don't know, positive thought, what you want the child to do. So that's one thing. And what I call this is water what you want to grow. So rather than saying what you don't want and giving attention to what you don't want, you water what you do want and give attention to what you do want. So you're probably going to make a plan for how you can give your child more attention at times that they're doing something that is either neutral or something that you're actually enjoying. There was one mom who tried this with her daughter who had been screaming, and she just gave attention at other neutral times of the day. She'd just go and sit with the child and just kind of join in their play a little bit, several times a day, not too much. And pretty soon, it didn't take too much more. Pretty soon, that child stopped 80–90% of the screaming. So she didn't have to even say, don't scream. She just had to meet that need that the child had in a different way. Okay, so you want to be sure you tell the child what you do want them to do. And you want to be sure they understand really deep inside what that is and what it would feel like to do what you're asking them to do. So one thing one family did was to play, they called it the rule game. The mom sat with the kids and they developed some rules together. And then the rule game was that every time someone followed the rule, they get a little like good job, or maybe a little star on their hand or something. And they didn't say anything about breaking the rules. They just, gave nice things when the child followed the rules. And it worked very quickly. The children started following the rules. Another thing you can have to do is have the child draw a picture of what it looks like when they're doing what you want them to do, when they are doing the behavior that you're looking for. Or another mom is working with her child to write a book together about, in this case, what the mom needed was some space so she could do her work. So, and her child needed a lot of direction, had a hard time playing by herself. So they worked together to make a book called, this is not her name, but just say it, Samantha Learns to Play All Alone. And so they illustrated the book, they showed all different activities the child could do, and put the book together. Actually, they're in process of doing this. They haven't completed it yet, but it's going. And then the child feels a sense of satisfaction. They've created something. They know in their bones what some options are besides going in and seeking mom's attention. I think we have a picture of this, of a list that one child made of things to do, things I can do all by myself. So I don't need mom to do these things. I can go out and do these on my own. So just focusing on that in a positive, fun way when you're not feeling irritated, and you're developing in a enjoyable way what behaviors you would like from the child. Another thing to consider when you're trying to change behaviors in a child is that you have to do what's called shaping the behavior. You're not going to necessarily get the full behavior right away. You might have to look at it in steps. Like, let's say you're trying to get a child to clean their room by themselves, and they've never been able to do that. Well, you might start with just picking up the books and putting them away. And once they get good at, and whenever they can do that, you cheer them, you give them praise, you give them recognition for doing some small part of it. And then you gradually increase until, the next is you put your clothes and the books away. And you gradually increase until it becomes the whole task. But just asking them to clean it up by themselves without that gradual increase feels overwhelming to the kid, and they don't think they can do it. So that's important. Step by step, start small with small goals and celebrate when those goals are met. You can make goals with your children. You can agree on a goal together. Make it a small goal at first, and it can grow. And celebrate when the child meets the goal. And one other thing, one maybe final thing I want to say about that is you want to give the child, reflect back to the child, a positive, empowered picture of themselves. So you don't want to say stuff like, oh, you're always leaving messes around the house, because that gives the child a picture of themselves. I'm someone who always leaves messes around the house. And it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Well, I always leave messes around the house. That's who I am, you know? So rather than doing that, you try not to do that. You help the child learn to clean up the messes in some of the ways we've talked about. And then every time you notice any little thing about when the child picks something up, maybe they just put 2 blocks away, you step in right away and say, I love to see how well you're cleaning up today. I would love to see how well you're cleaning up your messes. Even if the whole rest of the room is messy, you start small and accentuate the positive and give them a picture of themselves as someone who is able to do it. I can clean up. I can do this. And it will grow. You're watering the thing you want to grow. It will grow. So
Thank
another,
you, Taryn.
yeah.
That's been wonderful. That's amazing how you said to give a positive, nurturing picture of the child for himself or herself.
Mm, mm,
Which leads me on. I mean, I remember a webinar we had on Glow where we had Erin Michelle Call from New York. Now she's in Switzerland. So she spoke about creating a value system for the family.
mm,
And she spoke about how to convert these values into action.
mm,
As a family unit, how can we build a better world?
mm,
So, I was just reminded of that for a moment, and which
mm,
leads me on to the next question, especially during this lockdown, how to
mm,
create a value system as a
mm,
family. And then, like, as a next step, how do we, it's not even something I can think about. How do we create a value system, and how do we go about, making it as an action?
yeah.
You can speak about, like, it's one thing to speak about stress to keep children occupied in a nurturing, nourishing,
Mm,
and it's another
mm,
thing to elevate this into an entirely new level to talk about values and morals.
mm, mm.
Do
Yeah.
you think it's too mature to talk about it now, or do you think
No, let's talk about it a little bit. This is one of
thank
my
you.
favorite things to talk about. And actually, the lockdown might be a wonderful time to work on values together as a family.
Oh really? That's
Yeah, yeah,
surprising. Thank you.
yeah. So there's several things. One one thing that I like to recommend is having something called Value of the Week, where the family will sit down together, maybe one evening, maybe a Sunday evening, and they'll talk about having a value of the week and what we're going to do. And we'll choose a value each week to work on. I'll list some values in one of the resource sheets that we put on the page. But different values like generosity, respect, kindness, courage, harmony, helpfulness, acceptance, responsibility. All of these are wonderful values to work on. So the family can choose one to work on this week. And each night or each day, they'll do a different activity around the value. So let's say the value is kindness. Then one thing you can do is one day you all draw pictures or posters about kindness, illustrating kindness, and you put them up around the house. The more the merrier. Lots of posters about kindness. And then another night you could read stories about kindness, or you could tell a story about kindness. Or the family could do, one of these family stories where one person starts the story and then another goes into, you start and then you stop after a sentence or two, and then the next person continues and the next person continues. So you could tell a story that way. There's also a day or 2 days even for what I call value detectives, where you notice around you when someone is demonstrating that value. You notice when someone is kind, even just a little bit kind, and you appreciate them for it. And everyone tries to find at least once in a day that someone has had that value. If you can even find more, that's better. When you meet that evening, you can tell a lot of times that you saw someone being kind. You can also put on a play or a skit about kindness, and that might take a couple of days, one to plan and one to put it on. You'll have to have a pretend audience in this case because we can't get together with other families. But you could video it and send it to your grandmother or something. Then there are so you do that all during the week, each night with a different activity about that value. And each week you choose a new one. You can vote on it, you can have consensus about it, or you can take turns. I choose the value this week, you choose the value next week. And then there's other ways also to kind of accentuate the positive and build values in the family. Take some time to appreciate each other, some formal time to appreciate each other. Maybe before dinner, you have just a little time that you can say something you appreciate. Each person can say something they appreciate about each other person. You can also have gratitude rituals. We did this in one of the groups I had at school, and it was all boys, and they absolutely loved it. We had an oil burner, a little like, oil where you burn essential oils, you dissolve them. And before the group began, they'd each put a drop of oil in and say something they were grateful for. And they loved doing that. If I forgot it, they would always remind me. You can also do that at dinner time. You can drop stones in the water and say, tonight I'm grateful for the hot dog. No, you're not going to have you have veggie hot dogs, the hot dogs we're having, and you drop it in the water. Tonight I'm grateful that I had some time with my dad. You drop it in the water. And you also just can spend time together as a family, and that helps a lot, doing positive things. Sometimes we just don't have or don't make time for that, and it's a little thing to remember, but it means a lot. Be sure, like every week, you have some time to spend together doing something that you really enjoy. If you can't walk in nature right now, you can have a game night, or you can make a special meal, cook it together and serve it. Maybe someone can be the cook, someone can be the waiter, and you can have a special time together. You can also go out stargazing. That's so fun. And there's an app you can get on cell phones called Star Guide that will show you the constellations. You point in the sky and it will show you what you're looking at. That's a wonderful activity as a family. Whatever it is, whatever you enjoy, just doing something fun together helps to build togetherness and consolidate those values that you're working on.
Thank you so much, Taran. We enjoy doing the stargazing. We have that app on our phone. And maybe not every night, but we do it at least twice or thrice a night. We go upstairs on the terrace.
Yes.
And we check out the constellations. And
yes.
I don't even know, most of the times it's make believe or real. I just go with the flow, and it's just fun.
Yes.
So, it's just fun. That's all I can say. It's not about the actual constellations. It's just
Yeah.
about fun. It's just about
Yeah.
night. It's dark.
Yeah.
It's just fun. So
Yeah.
I really understand that. I appreciate that you brought up that point. So as we're drawing to a close of this webinar, shall we consolidate all the points that we spoke about? Like,
Sure.
um, so would you like to go through this in a crisp nutshell for parents?
Okay. Well, these are the main points. Um, First of all, become aware of the child's needs and engage them in ways to meet those needs that work for both of you. So some of the needs we've talked about today are movement, play, nature, and attention. And then another one is water what you want to grow. So remember, pay attention to the things you do want. As much as possible, let go the things sometimes you can't let go. If one child is about to strike another, you have to intervene. But as much as you can, let go the things that you don't want and really focus on the things that you do want to grow. Another is to celebrate small successes. And accentuate the positive in the family with appreciations and gratitudes. And the third is develop your values. Strong values make a strong family. It's a wonderful thing to work on together as a family.
Thank you so much, Darren. Really appreciate it. So I would like to actually highlight one small aspect here, that values don't have to be something high and mighty, lofty to look at like initially. Values can also be things like spending time together is also an important value, to be grateful for the time we have together as a family, and to look
Mm,
at it in that perspective rather than to look at it
mm,
in the perspective of, oh my God, I'm stuck with
mm,
these people.
mm,
So when you spoke about, like stargazing, for example, uh, it really struck me that, that's also a value system which we hold close to our hearts, to spend that small amount of time together as
mm,
just the three of us as a family.
mm.
So thank you so much for all this wonderful, amazing suggestions which you shared with us today, and I'm sure the participants have benefited a lot. And we also have something else coming up next week, same time. Uh, in spite of all this, if you still have queries, if you still have any challenges, if you want to talk to Terran one-on-one, there'll be this interactive Q&A session on 18th of May at 7 p.m. India time, 9:30 a.m. US Eastern time, and 2:30 p.m. London time. And we really encourage all of you to drop in and ask your questions to Terran. Alternatively, you can also write to us at glow@heartfulness.org, GLOW, glow@heartfulness.org. And if you would like to be anonymous, please mention that in the email. Or you can write on our Facebook page with this hashtag AskGlow. And all of this will be consolidated, and Terren will address all of this in the upcoming webinar on May 18th. Really appreciate your time, Terran. Thank you so much for spending this time with us. And thanks to all the participants for joining us today, and hope you're all benefited. Heartfulness Institute has other initiatives which I would like to mention now. Uh, we have another webinar called Pearl Webinars, and that is also present on the same website. We have Heartfulness Wellness webinars. We have Hello Life. We have Daji's webinar with Dr. Icha Adizes. It's called Tune Into Your Heart, and it's available in this location, adizes.com/heartfulness. There are other resources like the Heartfulness magazine, the Udemy courses, the free meditation masterclasses, the Heartfulness practices, which is available as an ebook, and of course the Hearts app, which is most important, where you can download this app on iOS. It's available for download from Google Play Store or Apple Store, and you can connect with a Heartfulness trainer anytime, anywhere in the world, and request for a free meditation session. So there is this voice that cats helpline. If you feel stressed out and if you want to talk to somebody about how you feel, and if you are if you need any assistance guidance, there is voice that cats which will help you out. This is the number. And at this time, we are donating a lot of resources to various organizations, to various to the society, to humanity. So if you'd like to contribute to the COVID-19 relief fund, please share your donations at this link. Thank you once again. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an honor and privilege to have Terren with us, and thanks to all the participants. See you next week on 18th of May, same time, and Terren will be there to answer all your queries. Have a nice day.